If you get a Social Security check, an SSDI check, or SSI every month, or your mom or dad does, there's a real chance that before this year is out, a letter from the government lands in your mailbox, and it will not be good news. I'm not talking about something coming someday, I'm talking about right now. As I'm recording this, the Social Security Administration is actively reviewing accounts, mailing out repayment demands, and tightening the way it watches your money. 3 separate things are happening at the same time. 3, and every one of them can cost you part of your monthly check. Here's the part that gets me. The people getting hit the hardest are the ones who had no idea any of this was coming. Nobody sat them down and said, here's the letter to watch for, here's the deadline, here's what you're actually allowed to push back on. The letter just shows up one day, says you owe money you didn't know you owed, and starts a clock you didn't know was ticking. So that's what this video is. I'm going to walk you through all 3 things that are happening in plain English, what each letter looks like, the exact deadline on each one, and the rights you have that the SSA is not going to volunteer, because they never do. Stick with me to the end, because the third one affects the most people, and it's the one almost nobody understands. And before you think this doesn't apply to you, Social Security and SSI go out to about 73 million Americans every month. That's not a niche. That's 1 in 5 people in this country. So odds are this is you or it's somebody you love. Let's get into it. Quick thing, and I'll be honest about why it matters instead of just begging you to subscribe. The rules around Social Security, SSDI, and SSI change constantly. They've changed 3 or 4 times in the last 2 years, just on overpayments alone. And when they change, the SSA does not call you. They don't send a warning. They don't explain your options. They change the policy, mail a form letter, and expect you to keep up. The whole point of this channel is that you find out before the letter, not after. After the letter, the deadline's already running. After the deductions start, your leverage is mostly gone. That's the difference between the people who catch this early and the people who get blindsided. So hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's get into the first one. The first thing, and the one causing the most pain right now, is overpayment recovery, the clawback. Here's how it works. The SSA decides, sometimes years after the fact, that it paid you more than it should have. Maybe your earnings changed. Maybe your living situation changed. Maybe, and this is the infuriating part, their own computer made the mistake and nobody caught it. It doesn't matter. They send you a letter saying you were overpaid. They name a dollar amount. Sometimes it's hundreds. Sometimes it's tens of thousands. And they tell you they're taking it back out of your check. And here's the change that most people have completely missed, so write this down. The amount they take has gone up, way up. Let me give you the short history because the number kept moving and it's confusing on purpose. For years, if they said you were overpaid, they'd withhold 100% of your check until the debt was gone. Your entire payment gone, sometimes over a mistake the agency made. That was so brutal that in 2024, they capped it at 10%. Then, in early 2025, they swung it all the way back to 100%. And then, after a huge public outcry, they landed where we are today. Right now, for new overpayments of regular Social Security, survivor benefits, and SSDI, the default is 50%. Half. They will take half of your monthly check every month until the overpayment is paid off. If your benefit is $1,600, that's $800 gone on a debt you may not have even known existed. There's one piece of good news in here. If you're on SSI, that's the needs-based program for low-income seniors and people with disabilities, the rate stays at 10%, not 50%. And if you already had an overpayment that started before this change, your old rate sticks. The 50% hits new overpayments going forward. Now here's what almost nobody knows. This is the whole reason to watch this section twice. When that letter comes, you have rights and you have options, and they are real. There are basically 3 moves, and they're different forms, so don't mix them up. Move 1 is the appeal. If you don't think you were overpaid at all, or you think they got the amount wrong, you file a request for reconsideration. That's Form SSA 561. You're telling them, look at this again, you made a mistake. Move 2 is the waiver, and this is the big one. If the overpayment was not your fault, and paying it back would be a financial hardship or just plain unfair, you file a request for waiver, Form SSA 632. If they grant the waiver, the debt is gone, wiped out. You owe nothing. And here's the kicker most people never hear. There's no deadline on a waiver. You can file it anytime, and filing it pauses the collection while they review it. Move 3 is the rate change. If you can't fight the debt itself, but you can't survive losing half your check, you file Form SSA 634 to lower the withholding. They can drop it to as little as $10 a month if you show hardship. They will not offer that. You have to ask. Now, timing. This matters, and I want to be precise. Read the date on your notice because the clock runs from there. As a rule, you've got about 60 days to appeal the decision. But practically, if you act within roughly the first 30 days, you can stop them from taking anything while they review it. Do nothing. And under the current rules, the withholding generally kicks in around 90 days after the notice. So the move is simple. Do not throw that letter in a drawer. Do not assume there's nothing to be done. There almost always is. And one number to keep in your head when you feel guilty about fighting it. The SSA's own watchdog found that improper payments are less than 1% of everything they pay out. This isn't a nation of cheats. It's mostly the agency's own errors landing on regular people's kitchen tables. You did not do something wrong by spending money the government told you was yours. Who to call? The real SSA national line is 1-800-772-1213. But here's a pro tip. Your local field office is usually faster and more useful than the national number, and you can find yours at ssa.gov using their office locator. And if you want a human in your corner who doesn't work for the SSA, a free benefits counselor or a legal aid office can help you fill out these forms. You do not have to do this alone, and you should not. That's process one. Now to the second thing, which is quieter and in some ways trickier. The second thing happening right now is about how closely the SSA is watching your bank account, and one number that traps people who did absolutely nothing wrong. This one mostly hits people on SSI, so if you're on SSI, lean in. SSI is needs-based, which means there's a hard limit on how much you're allowed to have in countable resources. That limit is $2,000 if you're single, $3,000 for a married couple. And I need you to really hear this next part because it's the cruelest detail in the whole system. That $2,000 limit hasn't changed since 1989. 1989, if that number had just kept up with inflation, it'd be over $5,000 today. Some estimates put it north of 10, but it's been frozen for over 35 years. So an SSI recipient getting around $994 a month in 2026. That's the federal amount this year after the cost of living bump. Can hit the ceiling after letting just 2 checks sit in the bank. 2 months of not spending your money, and you can blow past the limit and lose your eligibility for that month. And here's how people get caught. It's never the thing you'd think. It's a tax refund that lands and pushes you over for 1 month. It's a small inheritance from a relative who passed. It's a back payment, a gift from your kids, a stimulus-type payment, money you set aside for a funeral. Innocent stuff. But if your countable resources are over the limit on the first moment of any month, you're technically ineligible for that month, and if you didn't report it, that becomes an overpayment. And now you're right back in process 1 with the clawback letter. So what do you actually have to report? More than people realize. If you're on SSI, you're supposed to report changes to your income, changes to your savings or resources, including one-time lump sums, moving to a new address, changes in who lives with you, getting married, and being outside the country for a full month or more. The list is longer than most folks were ever told. Now, 2 things that protect you, because I don't want to leave you scared without giving you the tools. First, a lot of stuff does not count against that limit. Your home doesn't count, no matter what it's worth. One car doesn't count. And there's a thing called an ABLE account, which, if you became disabled before age 26, lets you save tens of thousands of dollars. Up to 100,000 stays invisible to the SSI limit. That's a legal, protected place to keep an emergency fund. If you qualify and you're not using one, that is the single most useful thing you can do this week. Second, do not try to fix this by giving your money away. I see people panic and hand cash to their kids to get under the limit. Don't. Transferring resources for less than their worth can make you ineligible for up to 36 months. You can create a much bigger problem than the one you're solving. And layered on top of all this, the SSA has been tightening its identity and verification systems agency-wide. Their 2026 budget leans hard into fraud prevention, data matching, and identity proofing across every channel. In plain terms, the agency is getting better at cross-checking your records against other data and spotting mismatches. Some of that crackdown has actually caused real problems. People have had deposits delayed and cases frozen, while verification catches up, especially when they update their bank info or address. So if you change anything, expect more friction than there used to be. And don't panic if a payment is briefly held while they verify. One more warning that fits right here, because scammers love this chaos. The SSA will not email or text you out of the blue demanding you verify your identity with a link, or they'll cut off your benefits. That's a scam, every time. When in doubt, hang up, ignore the link, and call the SSA yourself at 1-800-772-1213 or walk into your local office. Real verification doesn't happen through a panicked text message. If you're on SSDI rather than SSI, here's your good news. SSDI has no asset limit at all. Your bank balance alone can't cost you your SSDI because it's based on your work history, not your need. What can affect SSDI is earnings from work. In 2026, monthly earnings over $1,690, or $2,830 if you're blind, count as what they call substantial gainful activity, and that can put your benefits at risk. So SSDI folks, watch your paychecks. SSI folks, watch your bank balance. Different programs, different traps. That's process 2. Now the third one, and this is the one I really want you to stay for. The third thing affects the most people of all, and it just changed in 2026 in a way that creates both an opening and a risk. This is about disability reviews. If you or someone you know gets SSDI or SSI because of a disability, the SSA periodically checks to see whether you still qualify. They call it a continuing disability review, a CDR. And in March of 2026, the agency made a big structural change. It pulled all the medical disability reviews in-house into its own National Disability Case Review Unit instead of leaving them with the state offices. The stated reason is to clear backlogs and speed things up, and there's been a real backlog. We're talking millions of pending reviews. Here's why you should care. When the agency reorganizes how reviews get processed, the pace and the pattern of who gets reviewed can shift. More efficiency cuts both ways. It can mean faster approvals for the people who need them. It can also mean the review machine runs more steadily and your file comes up when you might not expect it. And here's the part that catches people. The exact same trap as the UK has with their disability benefit, just wearing an American jersey. The obligation to report changes runs in both directions. And most people only think about one of them. If your condition has gotten worse, if you need more help now than your award reflects, nobody at the SSA is going to call and ask. Nobody. Your benefit just sits at the old level until the next scheduled review, which under the in-house system could be a while. If you're worse off and you don't speak up, you're leaving support on the table that you're entitled to. You can request a review yourself. You can ask for what's essentially a medical reassessment based on your worsened condition, but you have to start it. Now the other direction. If your condition has improved or you've gone back to work and you're earning above that substantial gainful activity line we talked about, $16.90 a month in 2026, you are required to report that. If you don't, and you keep cashing checks at the old level, you've just walked yourself straight into an overpayment. And now, with the tighter data matching from Process 2 and the 50% clawback from Process 1, all three of these things connect into one very bad afternoon at the mailbox. That's the thing I most want you to understand from this whole video. These aren't three separate problems. They're one system, and they feed each other. An unreported change becomes an overpayment. The overpayment triggers a clawback, and the data matching is what finds it. So the move in every direction is the same. Report changes yourself early before the system finds them for you. Self-reported is a conversation. System discovered is a debt. If your disability situation has changed either way, the number is the same. 1-800-772-1213 or your local field office through ssa.gov. Ask specifically for a review based on a change in your condition if you've gotten worse. And again, a free benefits counselor can help you figure out where you stand before you ever pick up the phone, so you're not going in blind. Let me put all three on the table together because seeing them side by side is the point. Process 1, the SSA is mailing overpayment letters and clawing money back. Now at 50% of your check for new Social Security and SSDI overpayments, 10% for SSI. When that letter comes, you can appeal it with Form SSA 561, ask for a waiver to erase it with SSA 632, or lower the rate with SSA 634. Act inside the first 30 days to stop the bleeding while they review. Process 2. The SSI resource limit is still frozen at $2,000 for an individual, $3,000 for a couple, a number that hasn't moved since 1989, and the agency is watching accounts more closely than ever. Report your lump sums and changes. Use an ABLE account if you qualify. Never give money away to get under the limit, and don't fall for verify your identity scams. Process 3. Disability reviews got restructured in 2026 and moved in-house. The reporting duty runs both ways. If you're worse, ask for a review and claim what you're owed. If you're better or back to work, report it before it becomes a debt. None of this is simple. The system isn't built to be simple, but knowing what's happening is the entire difference between catching it early and getting caught out. And one quick, honest note, I'm not an attorney, and this isn't legal advice for your specific situation. Every case has its own details, so use this to know what questions to ask, then confirm with the SSA or a free benefits counselor. So let's go back to where we started. That letter. For somebody watching this right now, that letter is already in the mail. And here's what I know for sure. The difference between the people who handle it fine and the people at Rex is almost never about who's right and who's wrong. It's about who knew and who knew in time. Whether you understood you had 30 days, whether you knew the word waiver even existed, whether you reported the change yourself instead of waiting for the data match to find it. You know all of that now, so if that letter shows up, you're not going to freeze. You're going to know exactly which form, exactly which deadline, exactly which call to make. That's the whole game. And here's the one thing I'm going to ask you to do because it costs you nothing and it might save somebody their rent money. Think of one person in your life who's on Social Security, SSDI or SSI, a parent, a neighbor, somebody from church, and send them this video. Most of the people who get blindsided by these letters are exactly the people who'd never go looking for a video like this. One forward from you could be the reason they catch it in time. Subscribe and turn the bell on so you hear about the next change before it hits your mailbox, not after. Drop a comment if any of these 3 have already reached you. Watch your mail, know your deadlines, report things yourself early, and don't ever assume that just because the letter looks official, there's nothing you can do about it. There almost always is.